Bama suffered a stunning defeat to the hands of Vanderbilt. But if you watched this show last week, we told you to watch out. We told you to watch out. And you didn't listen. That's Mike Johnson. I'm Mick Gillispie. Welcome to the All-American Report. I think both of us kind of felt like watching that Vanderbilt team that trouble was ahead. And you could feel the stew. Hey, you just beat Georgia. Media's got you on top of the world. Now those same people are taking kicks at Alabama, just like they always do. Probably why Saban didn't like him. Now he works with him.
No, man, I definitely did. I understood that Vanderbilt, you and I got in here and talked about it. Vanderbilt's a good team. They, a lot of people pointed to the fact they were 2-10 a year ago. That's a completely different group of people that you're dealing with. It's not only, Jerry Kill and the offensive coordinator, Tim Beck, but the quarterback. There's just a number of different playmakers, man. And there's a million different ways that I've looked at and approached this game. And I'm sure we'll get into them over the next 30 minutes, man. But I think first and foremost, I put it on Twitter the other day. Somebody asked me what was, how shocked was I, or what was the most shocking thing? And I said, honestly, the most shocking thing is that I'm not that shocked. This is, that's what happens when, you didn't play a physical level of football at the secondary line of defense with your linebackers and on the back end. And, we walked this line. And Mick, let me start here. So many people, and I almost came to blows through text messages about, some people that have been texting me. A lot of people, this would never happen under Nick Saban. It's just not true. It's just not true. You got bailed out a number of times last season in these same type of games. Now, they didn't have Vanderbilt on the uniform, man. But when you want to go back to last season, needed 4th and 31 to beat a terrible Auburn team. You almost lost to Arkansas. You almost lost to Texas A&M. There were a number of different games the last few years, all the way back to the 2020 season that you escaped, and you barely escaped. And I think that narrative that, Nick Saban would have never let this happen, or it's a Kalen DeBoer thing. I think that's something you got to punt, man. I just think that this is a talented Vandy team. They didn't make any mistakes. They were extremely, detail-oriented in the way they ran their offense. And they were on the field for 42 minutes, right? You still scored 35 points as an offense. Jalen Milroe still did Jalen Milroe things. Ryan Williams still did Ryan Williams things. I have a number of different issues with our offense. But when your defense is on the field for 42 minutes, you're probably not going to win the game. And you saw the result. So, look, I'm not hanging on it too bad. I'm not still licking my wounds. We are recording this on Tuesday, and I'm kind of over the game, and I'm trying to move on to South Carolina, man. So, we'll continue to break down this Vanderbilt game, but it is what it is, man. You got beat by a good football team. Time to come to terms with it.
Yeah, look, I'm with you. I think that Vanderbilt is a lot better. We'll find out at the end of the year. I mean, right now it feels like it could be a colossal loss, but this isn't it was only a 21, 22-point spread. And I say only. I mean, there's been years when you could have played Vandy and it'd been a 50-point spread, 49 points. Let's not even put it on there. It would be so bad, like pick your number type game. But this team's not bad, and everything was there for this to happen. I guess to me, and the thing that I will say is that the one difference to me is that there's no way Nick Saban would have let anybody think that they were just going to walk in there and beat Vandy. Now, they might not have. Look, I like Coach DeBoer. I'm firmly on the DeBoer wagon. I like him. And then this is going to happen. It's his first year. He's trying to figure out what he's doing. Don't forget he still beat Georgia. Don't forget that this team can beat anybody in the country on any Saturday. And they're going to do that. They're going to keep on winning. This is an eye-opener. But the thing that you got to love about Saban is that he was so deathly afraid of this because it had happened to him. UAB, when he was at LSU, he used Louisiana Monroe. You did too when you played. That he would, as Coker says, you couldn't do anything right on these weeks. Yeah. Somebody in the media would have got yelled at in the press conference.
Yeah, and look, I go back and forth, Mick. This is either this is either something, in my opinion, this is something that's going to happen more often just in the SEC as a whole, not Alabama, just in the SEC as a whole, where you see an entire battery, right, from a successful offensive school be moved into an SEC school, much the way we did. Like I said, Tim Beck and Jerry Kill and Diego Pavia. But also, I think that this is probably new territory for Kalen DeBoer, right? I think that Kalen DeBoer, not only did this team come away with lessons in its players, I think Kalen DeBoer probably did as well. And I think that's okay. I think that listen, before the season, you're talking about it and you're going, well, if they're 10-2 after the regular season and they can, go to the playoff, I'd say it's a good year under Kalen DeBoer. But it didn't mean he wasn't going to have any hiccups along the way. This is obviously, his baptism by fire into the SEC. He passed the first couple of tests with flying colors, but here it is. It's the hiccup game that Vanderbilt is. And I just, again, I'm not shocked. I'm not embarrassed. I hope Alabama fans that are watching this are not, quote unquote, embarrassed. It is what it is. That's a good football team. It's not your daddy's Vanderbilt, man. That's a good team that played very, very hard. There were definitely some disappointing things that I don't think would have happened under Nick Saban. But then again, I don't know that, you get the positives, the 35 points he scored, some of the explosives that happened under Kalen DeBoer. So it's just different. And I hope everybody can kind of take it that way and make this as just one chapter of this story and not the entire book so far.
Yeah, right. I got you. I feel the same way. Well, let's hit a couple things on this and then let's pivot a little bit. Guys, thank you, though, for hanging out with us on All-American Report, part of Cover Crimson, YouTube Cover Crimson. Please give us a thumbs up if you like hanging out with the two-time All-American Mike Johnson and the rest of the crew. Thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Those are signs that we are doing our job. So you want to keep the show going, boop, boop, maybe hit the bell so you know when we're dropping new content. The other thing is that we're also available at covercrimson.com. Clint Lamb's breaking down this game, every single snap of the game, every single play, just trying to figure out what happened with the defense, why they couldn't stop Vandy's offense, what happened on 3rd and long, why couldn't they get any stops in the game? They'd have gotten 2 stops, they still would have won the game. They could have blocked a little more, which is something I want to ask you about, Mike. They would have won, but they didn't. And they were going to have to improve that for Saturday's game against South Carolina. We'll get into all that, though, at covercrimson.com. $1 right now for your first month. And if you do it, get the annual subscription, boom, you get one of the Cover Crimson t-shirts, which are very comfortable, I must add. End of the game, Malachi Moore, who is a captain, you were a captain, didn't act like a captain. Acted like my son, who is now 12, but closer to the time that he was 10. I'm watching his antics, and I'm not thinking this is a bad kid. I'm thinking this is a frustrated kid, but he's acting like a kid, not an adult, right? He's throwing his mouthpiece. The him walking over to the football being placed and kicking the football was wow. I mean, that was honestly something my kid would do. So I was looking at that going, I have a kid that would do the same thing. It's hard to put him in sports because he would do that. And then the worst thing to me was even worse than that was when they wanted to get him off the field, he wouldn't go. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't take the C off of his chest, which is something new this year. That makes it worse to me. I guess it really shouldn't matter that much because acting like that is so un-Alabama. And some former players have come out and said that. Damian Harris really, really laid it down. I think one of the best rants I've seen about this, or opinion pieces, which, by the way, he's excellent, Mike. Have you seen him? He is excellent.
Yeah,
doing this
he's
stuff.
good. He is good. I enjoy listening to Damian. I haven't had a chance to meet him in person, but I loved watching him play. And, I love the things that, he brings to the table in the media now, because I think he is opinionated. And I think that he's definitely, a voice that Alabama fans want to listen to. Look, count me in his corner, Damian Harris. And I said this on the radio over here in Atlanta, man. Of all the disappointing things that I saw on Saturday out of Alabama, and disappointing is the right word. I'm not embarrassed. I'm not shocked. Of all the disappointing things I saw, that was by far and away the most disappointing. And you can take that instance, and I was shocked and I was embarrassed by what Malachi Moore did, because it's not how anybody acts. I don't know if I've ever seen that in college football, much less at Alabama. Right. And so when you add all those things together, and you I think it was Damian Harris that said, you elevate and you make yourself bigger than the team and the game by showing out like that. And I think the attitude, knowing that we're going to do the show today, my first reaction was like, I'm not going to pile on Malachi Moore. He knows he messed up. He's apologized for it. But then I keep coming back to the realization, no, he deserves to be piled on. Like this, it's unacceptable, man. In every form and fashion that you can kind of mark down what happened with Malachi Moore on Saturday. I don't want to say it's a marker of a bigger issue, but it can be. It can grow legs and become a much bigger issue. If you don't do the right things. I don't like the way Kalen DeBoer has reacted to this. I don't love the way his teammates have reacted to this. I played with a pretty emotional guy named Rolando McClain. You go back and watch. He had some mini outbursts here and there. Shoved a guy or, pushed a guy in the face. Virginia Tech, I think, got a big penalty that allowed them to score a touchdown in 2009. Never, ever have I seen, not even in high school sports, anybody go to this level and pitch a hissy fit on the field. And the fact that guy is wearing a C on his chest makes it all the more embarrassing for me. Listen, you and I talked in depth on this show about why Alabama doesn't do captains before the year, right? Kind of alleviate some of the strain on some of the other leaders. This is another mark in that category. And I like Malachi Moore. I'm very thankful he stayed around, but you would think a guy that's seen as much college football as he has knows that this is unacceptable. So, I want him to be suspended, to be honest with you. I want a message to be sent to the rest of the team and to that defense. And here's another thing I can tell you, Mick, and it's almost always true when guys do this kind of thing. He didn't play well. It's that, it's so many times you see guys throwing a hissy fit where they're looking around at their teammates going, come on, man. You've seen wide receivers on the sideline and they're yelling at quarterbacks and doing a bunch of other things. Malachi Moore, I didn't think played well at all. I thought he lacked physicality. I think he looked lost in coverage at times. It was very evident to me that this defense doesn't really understand their roles right now. They're not physical at all. And so I think that comes from the leadership on down. So whatever you want to say to fill in the blank about Malachi Moore and the actions that happened on the field at the end of the game, I promise you I'm twice as embarrassed as anybody else because they're just – and Mick, you know me a long time, man. There was a lot of guys, and people talk about that's not Alabama. That's not how we do things at Alabama. Guess what, man? I was in those locker rooms when that changed. There were guys there before Nick Saban got there and when Nick Saban got there that acted like that. And me and the rest of my teammates in 2008 and 2009 and on from there took it upon our shoulders to make sure that we didn't have people like that in the locker room, right? That we didn't have selfish guys or guys that would throw a fit or make it about, themselves before they made it about the team and the actual game. And I think we regressed in that aspect on Saturday as a program, man. So it's as unfortunate as you can possibly imagine. And I'm much more embarrassed or disappointed about his actions than I am about the actual score on the scoreboard. That's not how Alabama does things. That's not the way, that myself and a number of my teammates fought to get that locker room. And it just stinks to watch it kind of be washed away by one tantrum.
And well said, brother. Well said. I think that's how we all feel. And hopefully Caleb DeBoer has this figured out. And hopefully Malachi Moore realizes like how important it is that not only he come back and be a good football player, but that he be a good leader. Maybe he can turn this into a positive. But you're right. That was what I worried about, Mike. It's exactly what I worried about. I remember hearing the stories. I've been covering this team for a long time. A lot of people don't remember. I know you and I used to do the radio show when you were on the tailgate show, and it was hard for you to think of Tennessee as a rival because you guys kicked their ass every year.
Yeah.
And Ben and I are like, man, we lost to these guys every year, going back. And it kind of feels like one of those instances right here where we remember what it was like when this kind of stuff started to really take over. And then Coach Saban came in, and that was one of the biggest parts about having him back in the beginning. And you were in the locker room. I'm just on the outside looking in, but
yeah,
hopefully Coach DeBoer has it figured out. This is a new age in football. You can't really do some of the stuff you used to be able to do. Maybe it's just like publicly he's just saying, hey, I'm, like he's just kind of, because it's so complicated. I guess because Malachi Moore was so important to keep that defense together, which so many of those guys left. I've criticized, T-Rob for, he's leaving and he's trying to take Caleb Downs with him. And, Is that part of why he's going to Georgia? Who knows? But I mean, then all of a sudden you got one guy going to Auburn, one guy going to Ole Miss, one guy going back to Georgia. And it's like your whole secondary's gone. Malachi Moore has a mulligan, and they're using it right now. And I've met him, and I know he's a nice guy. He had a bad moment. He's got to make this right. He's got to.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, man. And like I said, I never would have imagined I'd see something like that from a guy in an Alabama uniform wearing a C on his chest. I just didn't. And that's the most unfortunate part, man. I honestly, I think Vandy won this game. Like, I don't think Alabama lost. I think Vandy won this game.
Oh yeah.
I think they got obviously the strip sack at the end, and kind of a little bit of a fluky pick six, but it was a pick six. I would have celebrated if Bama was doing it. And they took it to you, man. And the bottom line is, you have to figure out how to lose with class sometimes. And I've been in Louisiana Monroe, Vanderbilt, man. It's a conference game. I lost Louisiana Monroe. We almost lost to Southern Miss. We almost lost to Houston. We almost lost to Hawaii. You remember those games, man. So maybe, maybe that's why I feel that way, because, I had to learn to kind of swallow my pride in those instances. And when it's a word, dude, the loss to Louisiana Monroe, I've been very lucky in my life. The loss to Louisiana Monroe is the worst day of my life. It was the worst day of my life to this point. Wow. I hope I don't have anyone worse than that, man. But hopefully moving forward, this is the worst day of Malachi Moore's, and that he can, kind of rise from this. But I'm just telling you, man, my worry is that locker rooms are so flammable.
Yeah.
Right. And when you light one little match, that thing spreads so quick. And I think you got to stomp it out before it spreads. And a message has got to be sent, man. And hopefully he can be part of that message and understand why it's happening, because you just can't afford that with the chapter that this program's in.
Show's brought to you by mybookie.ag. Use the promo code next round and get double your initial deposit. That is mybookie.ag. Okay, well, let me ask you this. We kind of talked about what went wrong. I think you're going to agree with Greg McElroy. He said this wasn't a hangover game. I totally disagree. I think that this is exactly a hangover game, and I'm going to tell you why, Mike. I've had a lot of hangovers. I know what hangovers are like. Probably way more than Greg. And what happens is that I'll have a great Saturday, and then Sunday I feel like I want to sleep on the sidewalk. Like this job here, which is easy for me. You've seen it. When I'm hungover, it's not so easy anymore. All of a sudden, it's hard to talk. It's hard to figure out. I was telling Coker that there's those times where you're like, you feel like, just doing this. You just feel like a point guard. Hey, here's Mike. Here's Barron. Here's Jake. Here's Ryan Anderson. Let's get them all in the conversation. Then there's those days you can't talk. That is what it felt like to me watching this team play. They were too worried about Georgia. Maybe they were banged up a little bit from that game. Vanderbilt was kind of laying in the weeds. They're a lot better than we gave them credit for. We had a young defensive coordinator that just didn't know how to attack this defense. Nick Saban, one of the best parts about him, he's a wizard of defense. And so he's seen this. Back when I was coming up, everybody played a variant of this. If you went to a school that wasn't very good. You know what I mean? Like you had like the triple option. That's just the way it was, man. Back in the day, like every school play, you had the guy running up the middle. You had the pitch play. They just change it a little bit, maybe with the passing and stuff. But it's if you don't see this, it can be tough to defend. We made no adjustments that worked. So to me, I felt like if we would have came in with more energy, we would have came in taking these guys for real, I think we would have beat them. I think we would have beat them, around the spread of 20 some points. I think we walked into this game. We didn't have the canary in the coal mine, Nick Saban yelling at everybody. I would have taken the beating from Nick at the press conference going into this game. If that would have been the alert that we needed to pay attention to this game. But what went wrong and what can we get out of this?
Well, and I'm about to say this, I respectfully and wholeheartedly disagree with what you're saying. I've been a part of Bama teams with hangovers. And Listen, I got to call you out on this. We've seen games where Nick Saban has given up 500 plus yards to offenses just like this. Dude. I mean, the Ole Miss Hugh Freeze games, the Auburn game last year. Lord knows Johnny Manziel and Texas A&M. I mean, this is not simply saying, well, Nick Saban's a wizard on defense. It's just not true. Like I said, you can go back and watch games where you've had dual threat quarterbacks that you haven't been able to attack. And that's one of the things about this offense. It's kind of like, they did a lot of the, I don't know what you'd call it. It's pistol and kind of an inverted wing T, but they have a guy to the side of the quarterback and a guy behind him. And what that does is that doesn't allow you to know who they're reading, right? Mm-hmm. You can have the guy in pistol and run the read option left and be reading the guy on the right, or you can run the sidecar and you can be reading the guy this way. Like you can do a number of different things. Out of this offense. And they're very, very, very good at it. Like I said, this is not just a quarterback. This is Jerry Kill. This is the offensive coordinator. I mean, Tim Beck goes all the way back to Pittsburgh State. The D3 national champions there in Pittsburgh, Kansas.
Franchione's old stomping grounds.
Yeah, man. So, like, these are people that are very good and understand how to attack. Here's what I'll say. What I think that Nick Saban probably would have gotten that might have made this a little bit different. I thought the physicality from our linebacking core was about as underwhelming as I've seen in a long time. Just simply fitting the right gaps per se, but when you're not attacking the lineman, like when you're just kind of shouldering it and kind of holding steady and just hoping the running back comes to you, instead of blowing the guard back into the hole and using the guard's body to fill that hole. I saw a lot of that. So I really think that when you look at the position groups overall, I don't think the linebackers played well at all. At all. I thought they lacked physicality. I thought they lacked understanding. There was a split-second hesitation in our linebacking core that I hope we can fix, and I think we can fix. We've got great athletes. And here's what I'll say moving forward. All right, what I want to see fixed. I want to see the linebackers play a little more free. All right, and I don't know assignment wise. It's tough to do against an offense like that because you're always going to diagnose. You're always going to have eye candy. But I want to see some of these guys up front be unleashed. Right, I want to see some disruption in the backfield. That's what I was promised when Kane Womack was brought in. This would be less of the reading and less of the two gapping and more of the ripping into the backfield and creating disruption. I think that when you play a team that is less athletic than you up front, that is the key to victory. And I think that just kind of playing off blocks and not being real physical at the point of attack, I think that allows a team like Vanderbilt to do what they did and have 42 minutes time of possession. The other thing is we've got to find a way, both in actuality during the play and in the call sheet, of having patience in the run game. And I love Jim Miller and I love Justice Haynes. There's really two different styles of run blocking when you break down offensive line. There's gap schemes, right, where you have pullers and one block this way, one block that way, and the running back hits it down the middle. And then you have zone schemes, right, the inside zone or outside zone, where everybody's moving the same direction and the running back can kind of pick a hole. The reason Mark Ingram won the Heisman in 2009 is because he was patient behind zone running schemes, right? He could do the wide zone and get north and south. He could kind of duck in behind the offensive line, look at the double teams, wait on the double teams to work, wait till the linebacker try to fill a hole, and then boom, he hits you downhill. I don't see that out of our running game. As much as I love our running backs, I think we have a very good offensive line. It's like if it doesn't explode right now, both of our running backs are like trying to bounce it. And I think Jalen Milroe is the same way. It's like if I'm not hitting my hat off the goalpost, I've got to bounce it outside and see if I can get more yardage towards the sticks. That's just not how run games work. That's not how time of possession works. That's not how staying ahead of the chains works. Sometimes it is a 5-yard game. Sometimes you put your hand on the lower back of Tyler Booker and see how far you can kind of ride that wave, and Caden Proctor, and then wait till a linebacker fills the hole and then shoot through the A gap. We just have this tendency in the run game not only to not be patient behind our offensive line, but we're also not patient with the calls. I don't think Nick Sheridan and Kalen DeBoer did a good job of being patient with the run game to actually take hold. You're telling me Jalen Milroe had 10 yards rushing? Like you're telling me that had to be part of the game plan after what you saw a week before? We've got to. I think Cole Kublik actually did a nice job on the broadcast. Usually see him on the sideline, but he was in the booth for this game. He did a nice job bringing this up. Only 4 times in this game, Mick, were their back-to-back run plays called. 4 times for Alabama were their back-to-back run plays called. That's 8 run plays total. 2 of the times you did that, so 50% of the time you called back-to-back run plays, you scored a touchdown. And I just think that the patience has got to be there. I realize it's a vertical passing team nowadays. But, man, when you get down to Alabama's core and what it is in the core of the SEC, this is a running league. This is an offensive line league. And when you have one as good as we have, you have got to be patient with what you're trying to do.
Hanging out with Mike Johnson, the All-American Report. We do it twice a week here on Cover Crimson. Like, subscribe, thumbs up. Get in the comments section, too. Get in the comments section and tell us what you guys think as we break it down. Mike bringing his perspective, part of the 2009 National Championship team, but he was also there in the transition that Alabama had from Shula to Saban, and and kind of just giving his perspective on that. Plus, you guys probably know him if you're Atlanta Falcons fans from his radio coverage, covering the Birds, the Dirty Birds. How concerned are you that we need change moving forward?
I think there has to be a change in attitude defensively. I just kind of alluded to it. We're playing on our heels, and I don't know if that's a film thing, Mick.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's a playbook thing. I don't know if it's a 2024 thing. There's a lot of teams in the NFL. It's kind of been widely covered. It's like a lot of people are going to play cover 2. You're going to get your butt whooped between the 20s in the NFL. And then when you get into the red zone and nobody can run vertical routes anymore, everything kind of tightens down, and that's when you play defense. Like that's kind of how the NFL attitude is. I don't know if that's Alabama's attitude, but when you have plays that are being scored from more than 20 yards out and you're getting hit with explosives, that doesn't really work because you're not getting into the red zone that much, right? So I think just an attitude shift in terms of the intensity that you're trying to bring in the front 7. I don't think the secondary played terribly bad. It's just when you diagnose this game is completely on the defensive front 7, in my opinion. They just did not diagnose, and I was really, really disappointed in linebacker play. Let me just put it that way. And so, like I said, if you go back and watch Jahad Campbell a couple times, it's not bad play. It's just very passive. So I think if you're going to make adjustments moving forward, man, you better be flying around like your hair's on fire, hitting people all over the field. And what happens, Mick, if you do that, even if you're in the wrong place, if you play with that attitude, a lot of times you can disrupt what they're trying to do to you. You can create turnovers. You can do all the above. We've got to quit playing reactionary on defense, though. It's just too much. It's too slow, and things are developing before your eyes are in the right place, and we're getting gouged that way. So hopefully they can change that moving forward.
My phone was blowing up. A lot of my Tennessee fan friends were talking a bunch of, just like they always do.
I was gonna bring this up to you earlier.
Guess what happened then, Mike? It got real quiet.
I was gonna bring this up to you earlier, man, because I will say this: if you're gonna lose a game, I know everybody says it's embarrassing to lose to Vanderbilt, but when you just beat Georgia and Tennessee's also losing and Auburn's losing to Georgia, it's like it's the best timing possible for a game like this. You know what I mean? Because I'm not really getting trash talk that much. Who's going to trash talk to me right now? There's not really that many Vandy fans around to talk trash.
No.
Right? Tennessee took a loss. I guess see what's going on at Florida right now. South Carolina knows that they're not any freaking good right now. So it's like as bad as it was, I almost felt like the timing was impeccable. I'm like, man, who's going to talk trash right now? There's really nobody left unless they're an ACC fan, and then who cares,
Yeah, right. They don't even count.
It's what it is.
Next show, we'll talk about South Carolina and dig into it. I'm guessing that we'll see Alabama bring out a passion and enthusiasm that we didn't see this last game. I'm hoping. I mean, I'm pretty optimistic, Mike. I just think that this was the perfect storm for you to get beat. I felt like that last week, and you're the only one that agreed with me. I mean, I talk about it on my other shows and it gets shut down, and I'm like, man, I just saw that game as being trouble. And I didn't think we were going to lose by any means, but I thought that it could be trouble. I think this could be something very positive for this team.
Well, I think here's the good thing. I think this is an opportunity. I think you have an opportunity this weekend. as more than just a get right game. I think you need to prove defensively that you can game plan for dual threat quarterbacks when the quarterback is part of the run game, right? And I think you're going to see that from Sellers this weekend. I mean, you look at it, we obviously had a lot of trouble shutting down South Florida in the run game, right? Didn't really struggle with Wisconsin. Why? That guy wasn't going anywhere. He didn't really struggle with Carson Beck. He wasn't going anywhere, right? But now you get to this kind of stretch where you're going to see Sellers, you're going to see Iamaleava, you're going to see the quarterback from Missouri that can run
you call him
bit.
Nico for the rest of us?
Yeah, Nico. Look, man, you don't have to worry about that with Nussmeier at LSU per se, but you also got Oklahoma and Auburn. And while you're saying, well, it's Oklahoma and Auburn, they're not very good. Guess what, man? This is the reality right now for what we're dealing with. You better learn to stop some of these dual threat quarterbacks and play a little more twitchy at the linebacker position against these kind of guys, or it can get out of hand again. And I do not want to see Bama turn into a Big 12 matchup where you're just simply having to outscore people 42-35. I don't want to see that, man. This is Alabama defense. It's supposed to be great. And now this is a get-back game for more reasons than one this weekend, but specifically about shutting down dual threat quarterbacks in that run game coming up with Sellers at noon on Saturday.
Great show, man. Very, very, very honest takes. Mike, as always, enjoyed it. Guys, get in the comment section. Tell us what you think. Don't forget that Cover Crimson right now. We want you to be a part of this YouTube channel. It's easy. It's free. Just go down there and hit that little like button. That's a way of saying Roll Tide. Then maybe swing over and subscribe. Makes us look like we're doing something positive. Keeps the checks coming. Hit the bell so you know when we got our shows going, and then go to covercrimson.com. Join there. You get the breakdown of the games, the message board, and all that stuff. And we appreciate you so much for hanging out with us. We'll do it again, Mike. Talk to you later this week, and Roll Tide,
man.
everybody.
Hang in there, Mick. Roll Tide.